Human beings remain in suffering for one main basic reason. They refuse to acknowledge the evidence of the existence of the higher way. Try that one again. Human beings refuse fiercely to acknowledge the existence of the evidence of the higher way. And I tell you, that evidence can be seen by you here this morning if you want it. People simply do not realize the enormous resistance they've built up inside themselves against what wants to get through and change them from down to up. Because people do not want to see the evidence, they remain at the mercy of guess what? And you think about this now. Because the evidence is refused, they stay at the mercy of themselves. What else? At the mercy of themselves, and yourself will show you no mercy at all. I just said that. And you can't deny that. So admit it right now. Realize how terribly you treat yourself. Yes, that is you mistreating you. Oh, I know, and you know. It's always someone else who's at fault. You're so important, so much a center of things, that everyone wants to persecute you. Everyone wants to make you feel bad about something. They want to take away your right to live as you demand that you live. All the time, a monstrous tragic act is going on inside your own mental stage. The act, unfortunately, of believing in yourself. In the first place, there's no one there for you to believe in at all. There's no one there that you could say, this is me. Because if you say, this is me, you're immediately going to activate 1,000 other dark, evil imps that are going to scream out, yes, that's right. It's lying. Yes, that's right. Because you are you. All those other people out there have no existence to themselves. They're all doing the same thing you are. But the voice is lying to you and saying, because you are you, you were really, I want you to accept as a fact, as a helpful fact, what I'm telling you. The moment you say and think and believe and act out as if you are you, you immediately disbelieve in the existence of everyone else. Therefore, no need to be nice to anyone else, to consider that they have problems too. Not really. You don't have to, you can put a show on it, but you don't really have to believe in it. This is the lying imp inside of you that is telling you, if you accept yourself, you're the only person worth thinking about. And besides, that's a cruel, vicious world out there, and you've got to protect yourself against it, against them. They're always after you. That's not going to change unless you give up the delusion that you are you, because you're going to have to. In order to keep the delusion of you going, have to keep the delusion of being attacked going. You could walk out of that door if you wanted. You could walk out of that door. Now, listen, this is a fact. It's not a pretty speech. I don't give pretty speeches. and effectual talks. You can walk out of that door knowing you don't have an enemy in the world. You don't have anything to fight for. You don't have anything to fight against. You can know it walking out your car. Yes. Right in the middle of the boiling kettle of troubles that you're going to encounter when you turn on the news this afternoon. And as you look out your window, you're going to, right in the middle of all that, know with an inner smile, really, truly, absolutely, that you're apart from all that. Oh, what a marvelous state to have inwardly, to know that you are untouchable. How can anyone touch the Spirit of truth to harm it? And that's what you're living from and with now. How can you be harmed? Yes. Now you have to listen to this now, because you're going to be tempted to forget it the next time that customer comes into your shop. And he's neurotic. She's weird. That's the world, isn't it? Neurotically weird. They come into your shop and give you trouble. You didn't send that shipment on time. I got it home and it broke. And they've got fire in their eyes standing at the desk of your business place. You know that's illustrative of the troubles you run into from other people. You know what else is a side thought you could gain from that situation the next time it happens? You can look at that one individual, that one sick-minded woman with fire in her eyes, that hard-hearted man who knows only, and I say this seriously, not an attempt to be funny, all he has is a moronic monologue. You can stand and look at him and know something that it's good if you know it this morning instead of waiting a couple of years from now. You can know that the machinery of his mind, that the complete sleep of his state can't do anything but walk into your place of business or talk to you out at the lunch wagon at the factory. You can know absolutely that nobody out there can do anything else but what they just did to you. But you know something else. They can't do anything to you. Because one day you heard about New Life Foundation and you dared to come to your first meeting. And you began to see that it really was different, and it's really strange and challenging. But you stuck it out. And you took it out into your factory or home or at the gathering of relatives. And they were all seated around the living room. Oh, you knew that man from high school and college years ago. You knew that relative, you grew up with him in the same home, brother, sister, whoever. And the strangers who happened to come into the room too, you sized him up immediately. And you sat there and you looked at them, and something was so clear and spontaneous with you, you didn't have to think about it because your spirit is on a level higher than thinking about it. And you looked around the room, and no matter what nonsense, what egotistical and greedy talk they talked about, which was always about themselves, or what gloomy Gus said about the bad news on television and the forthcoming disasters and what's going on wrong with the world. You sat there very quietly. You didn't say anything. You wouldn't have a chance anyway if you wanted to. That one woman alone talked straight for 15 minutes and she didn't even know it. Make that 20 minutes. You're sitting there. You now know what the peace of God really means. That means to not be with it, in it, but apart from every word, expression, charging emotion that you observed in that room. How did you get to this state? You got to it by realizing, and you realize it this morning, that's right. For years, the non-self I lived with showed me no mercy at all. It doesn't do a bit of good to put on the cheery front in front of all those people and to talk on and on about myself. It doesn't do any good, because when I leave the relatives gathering or the business conference, when I go out that door, there I am again. There it goes again. Let's see, which one of the 12 major worries and consternations of this day attacks me as I leave the meeting where I was giving that brilliant speech on how to conquer the world? What was the first one? I can never escape it. Now, as long as you're listening to yourself, you can't hear what is not a part of yourself. Ponder that one well. If I'm always listening to my own griefs, if I'm always blabbing, how many mental blabbermouths? Look, think of the phrase mental torment. How many already know what I'm talking about? All of you raise your hands. Now, hang on to your chairs. Everyone you know out in that world is fascinated with her own mental torment. Because there's a way to stop it and they don't want to stop it. That's all they've got. All they've got is their hatred and their petty little sarcastic remarks to you. The sad, tearful facial expression. That's all they've got. And unless they come here, yes, to this very room, unless they come to this very room, that's all they ever will have. They will never have anything else. I can prove it to you. No, you can prove it to yourself. You know what a shuffle is? A shuffler is someone who shuffles through life. Shuffler. I want you to watch the shufflers in your immediate acquaintance. And I want you to remind yourself of this. Oh, strangers can shuffle too. I want you to remind yourself of this fact. I saw him in March. And when I saw him in April, he was still shuffling sadly through life, always telling me the same sorrow story. Always so excited about the new fence he's putting around his yard. And he's so surprised that I'm not fascinated by the new fence he's putting up, and he's going to put some fruit trees inside it. And he goes on and on about the variety of fruit trees he's going to have, all talking about himself. He's shuffling through life. I want you to watch that from now on. And I want you to know that I don't care if you see him 8 months or 12 months or 15 years from now, in all probability, you're going to see the same shuffler. it took him about 8 months to get the fence around his house and the fruit trees in. And in those intervening 15 years, he's had at least 50 other projects, and he has to be tormented, yes, tormented by the arrival of the next one, polishing his car, fixing the living room up a little better, especially the books section where he has all those new books to impress people when they come into his house. All right. There's only one way to stop shuffling through life, which is to know that you are. Truth, at this moment, this lady here and here and here, and this man here and here and here, this moment, something from up there is coming down to you inside this room. It also comes to you when you're outside this room, but I want to emphasize here for now. It is trying to get a certain message through to you. It is trying to penetrate your aroused emotions. It is trying to get past everything in your head that screams out, I. I've got to get something. I've got to protect myself. I've got to be right in this argument. It is trying to get through that. And you are doing your best to block it. You're doing your best to remain in spiritual ill health. Everyone, except the few rescued ones, are doing their best to stay sick. All right. If you want to choose sickness, that's your choice. No one can be forced against their free will to begin to understand the horror show that they have taken as the good life. No one can be forced to stop for a minute and try to hear something that sounds different and that is different, that is trying to get through to you. You're going to be one of the few. You hear, in this room now, or in the healthiest place you'll ever be in your life, you're never going to find another healthy place like here. You're not going to find it in your own home. You're not going to find it anywhere you go. Now, I made a special point of that because I know all of you here in this room. You'd be astonished at how when I pass you in the aisle there, how I know absolutely everything about your psychological state. I don't know your favorite color or what programs you like on television, but I know you thoroughly. And because of that, I want to make a comment on that in connection with the previous point. Here this morning, there is an opportunity for you to shatter the nightmare of your life that you have called good, true, even spiritual or religious. If you are sour anytime today, tomorrow, if you have a sour comment to make, if you hurt people and don't even know you're hurting people, and if you are, you don't know it, you can't consciously hurt people. If you hurt others with your words, with your manners, with your insistences, if you're doing that, you are right in the middle of this miserable nightmare, because evil doesn't inhabit the kingdom of heaven. So if you were bad to yourself or anyone else, you're sound asleep. Now, I'm going to give you an illustrative story that will further the point that we're talking about. And I want you to know that you are the central man in this story, who was a farmer who lived out with his small little fields of potatoes and beets and fruit trees. And once a week, he would get his products and put them on his back. It was a small farm. And he walked, he had a donkey and a wagon. Let's make him a little more affluent. So he put all his vegetables and fruits in the donkey wagon and led the donkey along a trail that went along the base of a tall mountain. Once a week, he'd go into town and sell his fruits and vegetables and make a little money to keep him body alive, and then go back again. This happened every week for years and years. And for the first part of his life, that's all there was to it. Getting up in the morning, watering the tomatoes, pulling up the carrots and radishes. See, the reason I add those because it saves you thinking what kind of vegetables he had there. You can add your favorite one. How about kohlrabi? Watercress? Or does that only grow by the river? Nothing different about his life except that it was always the same. But something did happen outside of going into the marketplace. I've got to tell you a little more about him before I tell you of an unusual experience which has to happen to you. Arguing in the marketplace, the competitors get the best stalls sometimes. He got mad over that. And he hoped that the lady wouldn't see that the carrots were 2 days old. So he put a little water on them. In other words, his business life was chaotic, as was his inner life. Not much fun. Now that's I've just described to everyone. You know very well. That's the way everyone lives. They may not have a little farm out there, but they've got their own business or they've got their own home. And every day they get up and they travel to where they hope they can make a little profit. And something always comes along and bumps them and knocks them down, right? Well, but there was something different about this man, and you'll see what it is as the story develops. Every morning, weekday morning, once a week, he'd get his donkey cart out, fill it with vegetables, and pass slowly, shufflingly along the path at the base of the mountain. One day, something that never happened before happened to him. What happened was that he reached at a certain point, right about halfway along the path at the bottom of the mountain. One day something happened that he didn't understand. So he didn't pay much attention to it. What happened was that he heard a voice of some kind, sounded like a man's voice coming out there, coming down from the top of the mountain, where it was all very cloudy, you couldn't see, but a voice seemed to be coming through the clouds and speaking to him. Every time he'd reach at this certain point, he would hear this voice come down, but he couldn't hear it because it was quite high up there, and it was muffled sort of, but very definitely that voice was giving him a certain single sentence that he couldn't make out. But the first time he heard it, he paid almost no attention to it at all, because he had to be thinking about those turnips. And these were pretty good ones. They had a little extra purple ring around the top, and he thought that might bring him a better price. And he even thought of a sign: new development in agriculture, purple ring turnips. Of course, we have to charge slightly extra. That's what he was thinking about. So nothing happened other than, listen to this, other than a little tiny disturbance in his mind and spirit. Then went on. A couple weeks later, very same thing happened. Voice came down. This time it was a little bit clearer. This time he was interested in the next thing he was going to try to sell. Persimmons. How many like persimmons? How many don't like it? Now, this is important I find out those things. You'll give yourself away when you raise your hand like that. So he thought the persimmons, these were extra. What colors are persimmon? Could anyone tell me? Orange? These were super bright orange persimmons, and he was so excited over what he was going to get out of them. So he didn't pay much attention the second time. Third time, fourth time, fifth time. It happened so many times that he heard this voice that he began to wonder if he was going crazy. Yeah, there's something wrong with him. And he, even in the marketplace, made a couple timid, scary remarks to the other farmers there, the competitors, asking them, because they traveled the same road. Everybody travels that road. Everybody travels that road. He asked them if, in an indirect way, because he was afraid they might think he was crazy, because he was beginning to believe it himself. If they'd heard anything unusual, he didn't say voice, anything unusual? No, nothing. They passed it off, went on about their business. And this made him even more worried. I'm telling you stages you must go through. And I'm explaining them so that you won't be afraid of them. This is the exposure of the dark forces who know how so successfully know how to fool everyone that they have fooled everyone, practically everyone. The exception is in this room. They didn't know anything, so he went back to it. But there was something added to his terror of what was happening to him. What was added was an inability to try to go by and not hear it. He couldn't do that. He did it for a while, but now he couldn't do it anymore. Oh, that's marvelous, as you will see. Kept going by, hearing the voice, got a little clearer, a little clearer, a little clearer. But the clearer it got, not the more peaceful he got, but the more terrified he got. You should have paused inside at the end of what I just said in order to let that impress you with triple force. See, truth itself never makes anyone frightened. It is anti-truth that immediately leaps up upon the appearance of truth and tries to distort it and tries to shake you and tries to get your mind on turnips and persimmons. Tries to keep you back at the level of this world. Now, I am telling you here this morning that all shakings, all worries that you ever have when hearing the truth in this room or in your self-studies outside of here, I want you to know that any shakings you have are devilish. They are of this world. Satan takes such fiendish pleasure in tormenting human souls and gets his own energy from them. He doesn't want one of them to escape. You want to identify right now? Please do so. Identify your turnips and persimmons. What are they? What are you thinking about hard all the time, toying with, juggling around inside you? What worry, what concern over getting found out? Anything. What fear, what emotional shaking do you prefer to listening? Now, I'm going to tell you how to break the pattern. First of all, understand what I just said. There was never any reason, there's never any need for you to ever, any time, and from this moment on, to be in any kind of a sour, fearful, sarcastic, depressed, terrified condition inside at all. There is no need for that. Now that means you have just heard the truth speaking to you, and you're going to take that statement I just gave you as the guide in your life, no matter what comes up that bothers you. Health, anything that is upsetting to you is unnecessary, and you had better stop loving it. That's the reason you have it, because you prefer it, you like it, it's me, it is not you. Aren't you shocked at what you're doing? You're calling yourself, all unconsciously, calling yourself a bad person, a lost soul, and the wrong lost soul in you is loving it, and you identify by calling yourself a lost soul because you'd rather be lost than nothing. You call yourself a lost soul, and that's a perpetuation of your suffering. All right. He continued to grow not in grace, but in terror. Marvelous, because he could now be at the point where he could know that it was nothing but terror. And he understood the trick that had been played on him since he was a little boy. Since you were a little girl. The hoax has been overwhelmingly in charge of your life, and we're going to destroy it. Yes, that's tough, see? That tough, without being furious, without being angry, without being negative. Tough, tough, tough. God is tough. Truth is tough, 100%. You'll understand that. As he continued to take his products to market, the voice continued to come down. And for a long time, instead of it giving him what he thought would be good for him, it gave him guilt. Because it brought up, and let's go into guilt a little bit. The voice he was hearing disturbed him because he knew what a bad man he was. Now you fill in all the blanks, bad man, bad woman, all the bad things. No, not that you did, because the real you can't do bad things, but the phony you that you thought was the real you. Think of them. Think of them. Strike a blow against the infiltration, the evil infiltration right now by thinking of all the things that you feel guilt about. And no, we're letting him plod along the mountain trail while I'm telling this, and know that there is no time in eternity. Therefore, there is no guilt. The real you never did that. Think of something. Anyone ever done anything horrible? One person ever done anything? All right, think of just one horrible thing. Stupid thing? Dishonest thing? How about cruel thing? Doesn't make a difference what it was. You know it was wrong, didn't you? In your heart. You knew at the time, but you didn't want to make it conscious. All right, think of something bad that you've done, and know that it was not done by this. Obviously, it couldn't be done by the spirit of good. It had to be done by the spirit of bad. But the spirit of bad that you had, you loved. You knew nothing else, so you said, I better cling to that. So the spirit of evil which possessed you, we better get this out of the way. We get thoughts within thoughts. You better get this out of the way. All those zombies out there are possessed by evil spirits. And don't be afraid to use that phrase. Don't be afraid to go a lot further than that, as far as you can go in the use of the word. They're possessed by demon spirits, by demons, by devils. They are possessed by it. Look. There is only two things Evil and goodness. If it isn't good, it's evil. What is evil? Satanic. Don't be afraid of words. See, those phonies out there, they're terrified at using the word devil because they're afraid it might apply to them. It does. Will you walk the higher path and go through, for example, that one little experience you have to go through? Do not be afraid of words. Just know that those thoughts you thought and those things you did in your mind and maybe physically to other people, just know that they were devilish. Don't be afraid of that. You have to know it before you can get rid of it. If you're bad and call yourself good, what's going to happen? You know very well. You're going to have the thin covering of goodness on the outside, and inside you will live in the hell of badness, which is the life of everyone out there. They're living in hell. All those people driving by and walking by and not coming in here, they're living in hell, and that's what they're going to inherit. That's what they're going to inherit. You think they're going to come here and hear a thing like that where they're going to have to give up their sickness, which they idolize? He went along the path. More and more, with great fear and trembling, he yielded to what he at first thought he was hearing, but now he knew that it was a definite voice coming to him. And he both wanted to hear it and didn't want to hear it. You understand that perfectly, don't you? Yes, you do. You know what he did? He found out what it meant to pray rightly. I'll tell you what right prayer is, a partial explanation. To authentically pray means to be willing to give up anything you have to give up in order to see the unknown above your phony known, the habitual, the wrong. A real prayer, in summary, is a willingness to let go of everything in this world, everything that you are, in favor of not knowing anything anymore. You've got to unknow everything you have called right and valuable and exciting and pleasurable. You've got to unknow that as pleasure, as gain, as profit. You've got to unknow that without filling in the blank yourself. When you pray that you want help, you must not answer yourself. You ask, what can help me? You must not answer that question. You're walking along your path and you're hearing the voice. Not answering your own question simply means that you will not refer to the known self. Now, that's going to make you temporarily more scared, because you could used to say to yourself, as all those mad men and mad women do, I know what I'm doing. And look, I'm famous. A million people in that column I write, in the speeches I give, in the exalted position, a million people tell me I know what I'm doing. Oh, is there anything more sick and evil than depending on even one person to tell you who you are? They're going to lie to you. All the famous people of the world are being lied to, and they're all going to go to hell together. They are traveling to hell together. They don't know it, but you know it. He listened to the voice coming down. And now he had swung over from the 49% of willingness to the 51% of willingness. And he began to hear better. And he began to have a different attitude toward the voice itself. Out there in the world, they hate the voice coming from heaven, for indeed it was the voice of God, the Spirit of trueness coming down. He began to like it, love it, prefer it, and properly wonder about it. And so every time he made the trip and the voice came down, He prayed by wanting to hear what it said. Willingness, is he? And it came down a little bit clearer, a little bit clearer. And finally he heard it. What did he hear? See, you can simplify truth, and I want you to do it using the simplest words possible. And then in the simplicity of words, you will see the magnificence of meaning in back of it. So don't be afraid of simplicity. And I gave you an example of that. Don't be afraid to know that hard. Come on, look at that. You know him or her. What is his face like? Hard, sarcastic, cursing, bad language, vicious. You make one little slip in a remark, and he stares at you with violence or hatred. You know what I'm talking about. You've met him. That man is possessed by a devil. You want something to do with him? What's the matter with you? I know you have to work where you work. You have to earn a living. I told you in the earlier part of the talk that you can be right in the middle of all this evil and not be contaminated by it, and you will learn that by experience. What were the words? I'll tell you what it was, and I want you to listen for them for the rest of this day. The clouds represent all our barriers in our own mind. Pretty soon the voice will be able, because you want to hear it come down, you will hear it clearer, clearer. That means the clouds of your own wrong states fade away and the voice comes quite clear to you. You know what the voice said? It's nicer up here. Oh, aren't you glad you came this morning to hear that? It's nicer up here. How many know what it's like down here? Inside down here. Oh, it's nicer up here. Now you know the answer. The answer is to listen even when you don't want to listen, especially when you're resisting it with all you've got, a truth that you hear in this room. Listen to it listen, this is good. Listen to it in spite of yourself. And I will guarantee you, because truth first guaranteed it, that you will eventually hear the words, it's nicer up here, and then after hearing the words, you will begin to experience within yourself the meaning of what that means, and that nicer that it's up there will be the nicer that is in you, because what we've been talking about and what our farmer friend did, what he did was finally hear the voice and want that so much more than he wanted this fighting, hostile world, that he finally climbed up to where it was nicer up there. For the rest of the week, let's extend the lesson. The rest of the week, remember the story, and remember it's nicer up here. That means it can be nicer in here when I listen, because I love what I'm hearing. Love what you're hearing, then you will feel that it's nicer up here, nicer in there. Good morning. I would like you to be conscious of how you hide things from yourself. Ponder that opening statement and let it become very valuable to you. Try to see how one part of you stays apart and does not communicate with another part. With very sharp inner vision, you can catch yourself right in the act of pretending that you don't see something happening while another part is going ahead and doing it. For example, you may hide from yourself the fact this could happen today, tomorrow. You hide from yourself the fact that you took a second cupcake. Why? You wanted the cupcake, but another part of you was counting calories, right? Right. I want you to know, well, let me ask you first, how many of you sometimes feel helpless in the face of a tray of cupcakes? Tonight, you shall learn how to be cupcake conquerors. See, you want to try to prove something to yourself. You want to prove that you have self-command, self-control. You don't have to prove anything at all. You just have to find yourself out. How many of you have difficulty trying to prove your intelligence, for example? You don't have to do a lot of hard work keeping yourself divided. What you have to do is understand the precise process that is happening inside you and understand it at the moment that is happening inside of you. Because the consciousness of, for example, the self-deception that I just spoke about, consciousness of that removes it out of the darkness, and then you can face the fact that you haven't faced before, that you are self-divided. And once you see that, then you know that you're going to have to do a lot of hard work in order to end the raging civil war inside you, which happens because of opposing forces. I want the cupcake. I don't want the cupcake. How can you call yourself a happy, self-controlled, realistic human being as long as you don't understand what is going on in the dark inside yourself? To help you solve this problem and to bring it up to where you can see it as a minute-by-minute difficulty, I want to go into something that is very, very advanced in spiritual psychology, but which you can start tonight to take as a new, brilliant, marvelous source of investigation, which will at first utterly baffle you. You won't know what to do at the start with what I'm going to tell you about in a moment. But you are stepping off in a new direction. And I tell you, at the far end of this particular inner journey, you will go through your day at home, at work, wherever you are. You will go through that day with a different operating process inside you, which will be your guide, be your protector, which will have absolute authority over what is now keeping you divided and pained. That's how majestic it really is. And I'm going to read you a list of a few examples to make it clearer to you what we're talking about. And then I want you to go home and write down your own similar list, which you'll understand in a minute as this is developed. I want you to understand that you are saying to yourself, I am an unhappy person. Those statements you make to yourself. I'm a baffled man. I'm a worried woman. You're always talking in the depths of yourself to yourself and telling yourself the kind of an individual you are. And they're inaccurate whether you say, I'm sad, or whether you say, I'm glad. They are both inaccurate. You're simply talking about yourself. And it has no relationship to the reality of your inner nature at all. So I want you to remember now the following statement. I am not that. Try it again and underline the that. I am not that. Because you are not that. Now this does require examples to give you a better idea of what we're talking about. I am not that feeling of failure. You're not. That's a feeling, not a state. And you're reminding yourself of the facts of the matter. I felt like a failure when I didn't pass the test or I lost out. I felt defeated, lost, inferior. I felt like a failure. See? You told yourself who you were, which is a false identification. Now you're correcting it. I know. This is a lot thrown at you at once. But you're here to work hard. How many are here to work hard? All right, just pause with the first one I read for now. I am not that feeling of failure. Well, wait a minute. You're going to object. I do feel like a failure. How can I say I'm not the feeling of failure? You can say it because you're not it. Ever since you were a little boy, a little girl, remember playing around the home, playing on the floor with the other children. A little later, playing in the playground down at school. You failed at something, and someone even wagged their finger at you and said, yeah, you failed there, you slipped there. You fell for it, you believed it, and you cried and went home to your parents and didn't know what to do about it. But the first time it happened, you believed this deceitful, cruel world, which is all it is out there. And it happened again the next day, didn't it? Oh, so you scored a little victory here and there, a little sugar with the sour, but it always came back to that horrible anticipation of the next defeat. And you repeated over the falsehood, I am a failure. You're not a failure. You never have been. You're not a success. You never have been. You had the feeling, the impulse, the urge, the emotion, the uprising of fiery thoughts, attitudes. And you said, this is me. Now look, tonight is very critical for you, important, vital. You should mark on the calendar the night you came to hear this talk at New Life Foundation, because this is going to be the turning point for those of you who want what is true. Those of you who are willing to give up your pretense that you know what you're doing, which you don't. For those of you who are willing to abandon the self-hoaxing, tonight I am telling you a fact, and I know it's a fact. It can be the turning point in your life, because you're going to, from now on, work like you've never worked before in your life to say, the next time it comes up, whatever it is, I am not that. That is not me. It isn't you. Never mind. Never mind who you are. You don't know that yet. You can't understand that yet. You can know who you're not. And that's what we're working on. See? You have to get junk out of the way so you can make room for the jewels. I am not that. It doesn't make a bit of difference if you disbelieve it. It's a fact. Make no difference how hard it is for you to grasp. It still remains a truth. And the few men and women inhabiting this globe who once heard this fact and dedicated their lives to it, those few men and women shall be saved. And I mean that in the spiritual sense. As well as the present earthly sense, you shall be saved from your own quarreling with yourself, which you think is quarreling with the world, but which is always within you and then projected out to the world. I am not that, but I don't know how to feel it. I told you, never mind the feeling. The fact is supreme. Truth. Look, I could say it so simply, but let it stagger you with its importance. Truth is everything. Everything. Nothing but everything. So, see, you can just sit back and relax right now and be calm and be at ease, and you don't have to work with your feelings, your uprising emotions. You don't have to object to anything. All you have to do is say to yourself something like this: well, I know what a fact is out in the world when I'm cooking or driving my car or at work. I know what facts are. 2 and 2 make 4, I think. You know a fact there. All right, transfer that little illustration to the inner world. You rested the fact that 2 and 2 make 4. You don't have to argue with it. You don't have to get emotional. How many of you get emotional over 2 and 2 making 4? I thought 1 or 2 of you might. The same with what we're exposing nicely tonight. The fact is all that counts, and the fact wants to become a knowing to you, not an emotion, not fiery feeling, not a pulsating attitude. The fact that you are not that feeling of failure, it wants to enter into you right now. It wants you to just sit back and accept it, and it wants you to work effective now. You've got the first preliminary facts. It wants you to work at it every single time something comes up and you react with the schoolyard reaction that hurt pretty bad. Truth, the fact, wants you to look and see the hurt feelings. I don't care how awful it is, how bad it is, and I'll read some more in a little bit. The fact simply wants you to accept it as the fact, in spite of all the evidence, manufactured evidence, false evidence that you have collected since the school playground days when you went home and cried so badly and felt bad. And then it repeated itself, didn't it? No matter where you went, from the playground to the other school or to the party or to the romantic date, no matter where you went, that schoolyard impression was with you. As an unseen burden and traitor. Tonight is the night when you're going to shatter, break apart that formerly very hardened belief that you had, false belief, spurious belief you had about yourself. And you're going to stand on a new place, on a new platform, on a new foundation. You're going to stand on your new life foundation of knowing that all you have so glibly and gullibly taken as necessary pain, you're going to stand on the fact that it's unnecessary totally. Because something that is not a part of the pain of the playground, something that is not a part of that can shatter it and will do so for you if you want it more. You want to stay all hugged up inside yourself. We'll talk more about that later, about you breaking outside of yourself. But for now, do you have the cry of liberty in you? I just did experience a bit of puzzlement over the expression on that other person's face. Did I say something wrong or stupid? How many have ever done that? And you looked at their face, and that made you conscious of what you just said, of which you were unconscious before, right? Took someone outside of you to remind you that you were talking in your sleep. You're learning now to do it inside yourself. Anyway, he didn't smile as you thought he would. In fact, is that a feeling of disapproval? Oh, I did it again. How many of you have ever done it again? And again? And again? All right, now, here is the moment of truth. Here is the precise time period when you're going to refuse to run back to the kindergarten playground. You are not going to renew an old, awful acquaintance. You are not going back to that. You're going to fight for yourself. You're going to know, at least verbally for now, one step at a time. You're going to know, yes, maybe I did say something I should. Maybe I did. That's not the point. Maybe I made a mistake. That's not the point. The point is, my reaction, my fright, when I looked at his face or her face and saw that disapproval or rejection, what am I going to do next? Well, I'll tell you, there's an intense battle raging, isn't there? There should be from now on. Before there wasn't any battle. You just fell into the playground and felt bad. No! You're supposed to cancel time now. You don't have to pay the penalty for any sin. If you cancel time, you're free in now. And this is what you're going to do. All right, let's get right back to the incident happening again. Made a mistake, said something, did something embarrassing, something foolish. And you saw the other person or several people's reaction to it. Oh, you froze, didn't you? Oh, you wanted to sink into the floor and disappear. All right. Look. This class, this room is for fighters. Hands of fighters. All right. You're not going to race back to the playground. You're going to say, I don't care if it doesn't mean a thing to you yet, which it won't. You're going to say, I am not that. You're going to say, that's not me. The reaction isn't me. I am not that feeling of shame. Talk. There's such a thing as negative collisions, and there's such a thing as positive collisions. You've just heard about a positive one. That one little attitude of yours, refusing to take yourself as being the same thing as that dreary, disgraced feeling. Your refusal to do that. You know what it's crashing against? Everything you've ever felt before, long before the playground even. Because it happened even before the playground. What a collision! But you know what happens? Something gets smashed. And I have very good news for you. What gets smashed is delusion. What gets smashed is pretense. What gets smashed is the pain manufacturing machinery that has been chugging and churning so brutally all these years inside you. All right. You've said, for the first time, and I want you to make it as soon as possible from now on, you've said, going against all evidence of your mind, of your preference even, you've gone against that. And you said, yes, there's a great shame, fear, tension going through me. But I went to that lecture that night, and I heard something that makes sense to me. I don't understand it, but I can sense the sense of it. And that feeling of guilt that I have is painful, hurts. Would truth and God want me to be the slave of an emotion, of a reaction that hurts me? Would a loving deity want me to suffer? Obviously, the answer is no. Oh, I never thought of it that way, even that one way. I never thought of it that way before. Well, of course, God doesn't want me to suffer. Of course He doesn't. Then, if I've been suffering, which I have, I can't tell anybody about it, it's so bad. If I've been suffering, that means that I have been living apart from the facts. And one of those facts that I was living apart from was the one I heard that night at New Life Foundation, in which I was instructed to start. Never mind success. I'm asking you to start. Try. Do it. I am not that feeling of humiliation. Oh, now I'll tell you where the dark forces are going to try to trip you up and make you give up. You know what they're going to say to you? See, we're exposing satanic spirits. I said satanic spirits. They are going to try to get you to worry over what will replace your suffering. And don't you fall for it. You find out. You experimentally, through personal encounter and experience, you will discover for yourself what happens when you bravely and honestly and nobly see the pain of whatever it is, the disgrace or whatever, And then you say, in reality, I am not that. Be willing to discover that there is an intelligence that is higher than your present intelligence. Come on now. I want you to answer a question. The question is this: how intelligent is it to be in strain, in contradiction, and anguish, insight? Is that intelligent to live? Of course it's not intelligent. It is intelligent to be free and happy. All right. Once you have said, I am not that, let me tell you what you have to do next. And it's the only thing you have to do. If you do anything else, you'll wreck the process, and you'll just prolong the experiment. Once you say, I am not, in reality, that anguish, that painful regret, I'm not a person being insulted by someone else. Once you are lonely, I'm not lonely, I'm not that feeling of loneliness, that's a good one. Once you state the fact, I am not that, I wish I could scream to burst the roof off of here, and I may do that some night. That, here's what I'm going to scream. Hold the roof down, please. Once you say, I am not that, leave it alone. If you monkey around with it, need I finish the sentence? You're going to wreck everything. You're not capable yet of taking the second step. The first one is important for you to do rightly now. Once you say, I'm not that, guess what? Oh, how many of you would like to be absolutely perfect? How many don't think there's much chance? All right. I'm going to tell you now I'm serious now. When you say, I am not that feeling of persecution, I am not that feeling. Once you come to the period at the end of the sentence of persecution, I am not that fiery, angry person. You're really not. Once you come to the end of the sentence, you have said something that is 100% perfect. It's there. There it is. Absolutely right. And it's important that you do not wreck truth's perfection by trying to improve on it, by trying to feel the truth of it. It's important that you say it. Now, you know and I know that you're saying it for the first time very mechanically. You've been told to say it. You've instructed yourself to say, I am not that. That negative outburst and attitude is not me. You're saying it mechanically because you were told, and rightly so, to do it. Fine. Now, it isn't going to become a conscious knowing experience to you overnight. We have a lot of hard work to do. So, once you state the heaven-sent statement, I am not disappointment. Once you have said that, I'm not grief. Once you have said that, put a period there, and then be determined that in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever time it takes for you to have the next experience and hurt, you're going to do the same thing again. I'm not that. Then stop. Don't fool around. Don't get ahead of the path. Do one thing at a time. And here's what will happen. You will form a right habit. They're right habits, good habits. You will form the right mental habit, but it's still only mental. Not spiritual yet. It is not spiritual yet. It has no power yet. It's still mental. But the mind is now, oh, isn't this itself marvelous? Your mind is now working right. How many would like that? Your mind is now working perfectly. Because every time you feel like you're a failure, defeated, that it's hopeless and you're helpless, no matter what painful, it doesn't make a difference what it is, no matter what painful feeling you have, you're going to simply answer, I am not that, that's not me, but I am not that. Those nice 4 words should be the best solid to say. Once you say that, you're acting rightly. Then the next time you do it, you're acting rightly. The next time, the next time, the next time. Now, by obedience to elementary spiritual lessons, which you have just been given, obedience and a love for that. Oh, please love everything you're hearing. Please love it. It's the only thing that will love you back. You're looking in the wrong place for love, by the way. You suspect that, don't you? Yeah. All right. You say it over and over. The right mental habit, the mechanical part, comes in and it serves you. Next step. After working with that for a long, long time, I am not that. The next lesson will come to you from the higher to the lower because you have been willing, by taking that right reply, I am not that, you have been willing to learn more. And that's a prayer, and that prayer shall be answered. So, unexpectedly, it could happen any place, any time, even asleep even. It could suddenly come to you that there is a sensing which is not the same as your usual emotionalized thinking and living. You will begin, you will start to understand that there really, truly does exist a spirit of truth. This has nothing to do with that old former negative responses that you used to have of being sad and feeling betrayed, feeling that it's hopeless. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that because the new is not of that world at all. It's from another world. A world that is now coming down from a higher world to your physical world and beginning to enlighten and influence that. So now, as the second stage, now you've got to be faithful to the first one, long, long time. You must let the second stage come to you. Don't you build it in imagination. If you do that, again, you're going to get off track. Now you have to get back on the track and start all over again. You will begin to know, walking down the street, seeing maybe different physical things. Maybe you see an accident. Maybe someone waves to you from across the street. You'll be able to see all your responses to all these outside signals that are coming to you. And you will know, with a capital K now, you will know, not think. You thought for years about it, and you serve your apprentice with the thinking level. But now you know, in inner liberty, that you are not anything that can set you off. You used to want to be set off, didn't you? That's important to get. You used to want to yell back. How many yelled back at somebody today, at least in your mind? See. How many argued with someone in your... See, you wanted to. Why? Because when you argued with that person, whether it was in your mind or with the words, you said to yourself, I I have a right to tell him off. I am right about this and they are wrong. You're always getting a sense of self from it, which is false. And what you're doing with this exercise here tonight is destroying the playground foundation, the false foundation. And by destroying that, you make room for what is new. And among the many lessons that will come to you is the lesson that you took pain, the pain of feeling like a failure, the pain of rejection. You took that not only as a necessity, but as a friend that you had to have. Come on now. Say this to yourself sometime. Who needs to suffer? I don't need it. You don't need it. You think you do. Because you think there is a sufferer there, and there isn't. There is no sufferer there. There is suffering, but there is no sufferer. Just now, in your present condition, there is also not a liberated spirit. But now you're understanding both of those. You're no longer calling yourself saved. You're no longer deceiving yourself as to how much you know and how right you are and how you don't need anything from anyone, that you're all right as you are. Self-proving is self-torment, isn't it? Just notice your friends, by the way, in regard to that. Notice that braggart, notice that boaster, right in the middle of him doing that. Look at the little bit of moisture in his eyes. Look at the trembling of his hands and of his lips. And you make up your mind that you're going to go back and shatter that playground so that it no longer has the control over you that it has over that relative of yours. I want to read some more of these before it gets too late. The first one was, I am not that feeling of failure. Simply a fact, you're not. You don't have to accept it. I am not that fiery frustration. How many feel frustration? And you notice there's fire with it. How come you like to burn yourself? You're not supposed to play with matches. I am not that impulse to yell at someone. Oh, wait a minute. But it feels so good. No, it doesn't feel good. It feels bad to be bad to yell at someone. It feels bad what you call good. Because you call it good because you think it's a sign that you are a yeller. A greener? We can follow that anywhere we want to go. I am not that attitude of boredom. Oh, hear faithfully, all ye actors and actresses. Oh, my life is so dull and boring. Let's do this or let's do that. I cordially invite you to say, no, I am not that, the next time you feel bored. Now, if it doesn't go away, don't go take a second cupcake. If the boredom doesn't go away the first time, just remember this good news. You only have to do it 10,000 more times. I am not that shameful disgrace. Oh, that is a very painful one, isn't it, to feel disgraced? And do you know why you feel disgraced? You feel disgraced because you're under the power of the facial expression and the words and the attitudes of people outside you. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is for you to live with your own sinful nature as long as only you know about it? Come on now, you think with me. You can always tell yourself, well, I'm not so bad, But when someone else does it, that's when the hurt comes in doubly, right? Someone else knows about it. which is another form of self-deception. I am not that shameful disgrace. And in reality, you are not. I dare you to never ever feel disgraced again. Yes, you must learn the lesson from the incident, whatever it was. We agreed that maybe you did say something or do something you should not have done. We're not saying that we're perfect. We're saying we know it's a mistake. We know we were foolish. How many have ever been ridiculously foolish? All right. Once that acknowledgement is made, and that has to come first, without honesty, ye shall not be saved. So you have to go beyond your surface reactions and go further. I am not that mocking memory. School round, you are not that school round memory. I am not that scary imagination. I am not that concealed emotional panic. Look at that one for the time we have. I am not that concealed emotional panic. You are, in reality, a nature that is spiritual. And what you have to do in order to have this spiritually free nature that doesn't suffer is to do the exercise and to remember that now you have been fooled. You have been deceived. Now don't be afraid to admit it. You've suffered from it. It's there. Simply know that you've been hoaxed and you didn't realize that. Once that is done, then you can start this whole exercise. I am not that. All right. Our time is almost up. I want you to go out of here, and the moment you get up from your chairs, I want you to give yourself the first exercise, I am not that, so you get the momentum of the intellectual part going. Later it will go into the spiritual part, into the higher part. And you won't, you know what? You won't even have to say anymore, I am not that. You will know it. You will live from it, and you will live free and happy. Good night.